I know you killed my father. You won't say, but I know.
Look, kid, I get it if you feel some type of way about me. But whether I did it or not, it don't matter. But if you want to come and see me about it someday, I'll understand.
Now, over the past few weeks, we've been breaking down a bit of Power Book 4 Force. I thought with us being in December and with Christmas being around the corner, why not stick with the theme of the Christmas Chancellor himself, Tommy Egan. We've been through the storyline of Maria potentially being pregnant, and how that could basically alter the dynamics for Tommy like never before. We also went through Tommy's threats and enemies, and why it makes sense for Tommy to actually call Tariq for help. You can really see a scenario where it really is everybody against Tommy Egan, where he basically has no choice but to call Tariq. But one perspective which we haven't kind of touched on just yet, at least from a Tommy perspective, is the Italian Mafia. Some of you may remember I broke this down for Tariq during Power Book 2 Go Season 4, especially when we had Noma was supplying the Italians. But Tariq and Tommy definitely have something in common. They were both in on the Joe Proctor kill back in Season 6 of Power. Tariq helped Tommy by taking Elisa Marie out of the penthouse, where he left the back door open, and well, we all know what followed. And I do feel like if Power Book 4 Force really want to throw a twist in our direction, why not just add the Italians to a long list of Tommy's problems? In turn, could that also lead to the next Power show? So, we're going to be running through the Italian Mafia, and why I still believe Elisa Marie Proctor and the Italian Mafia could still have a role to play in the wider Power universe, for both Tommy and Tariq, either in Power Book 4 Force or even beyond. Now, just before we get to Elisa Marie and the Italian Mafia potentially returning, let's just rewind it back to Power and give ourselves a reminder of her backstory, which in turn will give us a foundation of why she and the Italian Mafia could come back and haunt Tariq and Tommy. Now, Elisa Marie was first introduced as Joe and Lindsay Proctor's daughter, where she was caught in a situation which no child should ever find themselves in. Her parents were separated, with Elisa Marie being caught in the middle of this tug of war and this custody battle between her parents. It was made even more complicated because not only was her father a criminal defense attorney for two of the biggest drug dealers in New York, he also set up Lindsay to make her think she failed her re-entrance exam to the bar, which then pushed her to take in drugs again, where she overdosed. Now, instead of helping, Proctor saw it as an opportunity to get rid of the problem, kind of solving a problem before it became a problem.
Dad used to always say, no witnesses, no jail time. And I'm a witness, right?
What you think your father really did for a living? You know what he really did?
Criminal defense. He protected people like you.
Yeah.
Deep down, Elisa Marie definitely knew who her father was and what he did, because she had every bit of this conversation between her father and Uncle Benny. And for someone as young as Elisa Marie, she really was someone who was very wise and shrewd. Her upbringing, background, and what she went through definitely plays a part, and we will come to a bit more as to why she is the way she is in just a moment. Now, later on in the story, when Proctor was testifying against Tommy, he realized he needed a safe place, and Ghost Penthouse Suite in Tribeca was a perfect location, so he thought. Before all the chaos, Tariq realized that Elisa Marie couldn't be around while Tommy came to deal with Proctor, so he took Elisa Marie out for ice cream, leaving the back door open for Tommy, and we are going to come back to that later on in this breakdown, because as much as Tommy is responsible for Proctor's death, Tariq also played a huge role, and that definitely can't be overlooked. I also feel like there was a foreshadow in one of Tariq's nightmares in Ghost, something we didn't really see play out in Power Book 2 Ghost, but it also kind of ties into why I think there's still unfinished business between Elisa Marie and Tariq, so just keep that in mind. Now, fast forward to Season 6, Episode 13, an episode which I think everybody should rewatch if they have the time. This is the episode where I feel all the clues are hidden for Elisa Marie and the Italian Mafia's eventual return. After the death of Proctor, Elisa Marie was now living with Aunt Dolores, Benny's sister.
She said I was going to be smarter and stronger and braver than all my brothers combined. And the problem is, strength is why women in families like ours are the ones who survive.
Aunt Dolores began to mentor Elisa Marie, teaching her how she should be strong, because women are often the backbone of a lot of families, and from my own personal perspective and experience, I do have to agree. She also warned Elisa Marie that Tariq wasn't her friend, because as they dug into the recording that Proctor left as a failsafe, she could see straight through Tariq's bullshit, just like Sachs could, Detective Carter, Rashad Tate, and a few others. Now, in Tariq's nightmare, Joe Proctor alluded to Elisa Marie being made an orphan, but she does have some family left, and they aren't just any ordinary family. Carlos Civello is Elisa Marie's great uncle and also the head of the Civello mob, and I do think Tommy's reaction when he kidnapped Elisa Marie gave it away in terms of just how powerful and dangerous they may actually be.
To share with Carlos Civello.
The head of the Civello mob, that Carlos Civello?
He's my great uncle.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Now, Tommy's a character who's not afraid to go toe-to-toe with anyone. We've seen what he's done in Power, even going up against Vincent Ragni and the Ragni crime family. We've also seen what he's done in Chicago, going up against Walter Flynn, the Irish, the Serbs, the CBI, and also Miguel Garcia and the Mexicans. But the fact that Tommy was thinking, shit, when he heard who Elisa Marie was connected to, I think that tells us the Civello mob aren't a family you want to be messing with. The Italian crime family run mega deep. I mean, Tommy should definitely know. His father was also Italian. Now, while Elisa Marie was with Tommy, we also learned a bit more backstory. She told Tommy how her mom sold her wedding ring that was meant for Elisa Marie to a pawn shop for a high. And now that we've seen Force Season 2, the story sounds awfully similar to what Tommy went through with Kate, spending all her money on getting high rather than taking care of Tommy. So, we didn't know it at the time, but these two definitely had a lot in common. I also thought about the ring that Tommy holds very close to his heart, the ring that he bought for Lakeisha, and I did think it would be quite poetic if we saw Tommy giving the ring to Elisa Marie, and who knows, it could still actually happen in the future. But, as I said before, these were two characters who had a lot in common. Both of their mothers were junkies, and Tommy could relate to a lot of the pain Elisa Marie had gone through. The look on Tommy's face as Elisa Marie told her about her backstory spoke 1,000 words. As I've said many times before, silence often speaks louder than words, and this was definitely one of those moments.
All he ever did was just try to protect me. Uncle Benny, too. Now he's gone. Just like everyone else I've ever loved.
This is also something Tommy is all too familiar with, losing people he loves, and he also knows too well, the more you lose, the more numb you become to the pain and the colder you become. And that also goes for Elisa Marie. As a kid, she's lost so much, and also at a very young age, from both her parents to Uncle Benny, and now being raised by her Aunt Dolores with ties to Uncle Carlo and the Civello mob. So who do you think Elisa Marie is gonna grow up to become, and who will she blame for her father's death? It's definitely something we have to think about when it comes to the future of Elisa Marie, and also who she becomes. What she's been through, how she's been hurt, all the people that she's kind of lost. It's definitely gonna contribute to her becoming a colder character, someone who may want revenge, but as she gets older, she's gonna become a lot more dangerous. I mean, we only have to look at what Tariq's been through, who he's become after he lost Raina, after he was mentored by Kanan. In Elisa Marie's case, she's lost both her parents and also Uncle Benny, and will probably be mentored by Aunt Dolores and the Italian mafia. So, just a thought, imagine how dangerous Elisa Marie could be when she returns. Now later on, Elisa Marie also learned Tariq lied to her, as well as knowing it was Tommy who pulled the trigger on her father. And it is the conversations with Tommy I do think we have to pay closer attention to, especially right at the end.
But whether I did it or not, it don't matter. But if you want to come and see me about it someday, I'll understand.
Now, as Tommy came back to visit Elisa Marie, he said that he would understand if she came to see him in the future at some point about Joe Proctor's death. And I do think this conversation is worth revisiting from time to time. Whenever someone says what Tommy says, you better believe they will be coming back to have that conversation. Elisa Marie will return at some point in the future, but just like I mentioned before, let's not forget who also played a huge role in Proctor's death, Tariq St. Patrick. Now it's kind of too late for them to introduce the Italians in Power Book 2 Ghost. Who knows, it may have been a storyline that they may have tapped into if there was a season 5. But can they introduce the Italians into Power Book 4 Force? Again, I think that might be kind of the same problem. Is it too late considering it's the last and final season of Force? They've got a hell of a lot to tie up in just one season. Even though there probably will be a host of storylines that they kind of leave open for whatever comes after Force, they'll still have to tie up a lot of these character arcs and storylines. So, do they really have time to introduce the Italians as a new threat? On one hand, I think maybe not, because they've only got 10 episodes and they need to tie up a lot of the storylines for the CBI, Jannard, Shanti, the Mexicans, what happens with Vic Flynn, what happens with law enforcement, and that's just to name a few. On the other hand, I can see a scenario in which they can kind of introduce this storyline, right at the end, when Tommy's kind of dealt with every single problem that he needs to deal with. Just when he thinks he's finally beaten everyone, We all know whenever you kind of get rid of one threat in power, another one appears. And what if this new threat are the Italians? What if towards the end of Power Book 4 Force, the Italian Mafia enter? And that's the reason why Tommy calls Tariq, just like in an after-end credit scene like we saw in Power Book 2 Ghost, where everything's been kind of closed off with Power Book 4 Force. Just when Tommy thinks he can live happily ever after with Maria, his family, and potentially his newborn, if Maria is pregnant, in comes a threat of the Italians, and that's what could lead us into the next Power show. As I mentioned during Power Book 2 Ghost, when I made the video in regards to who were the Italians, the Italian history runs deep in America. The Mafia also run their organization a little different. It's a mafia, not a gang. There's a clear hierarchy and a structure with the Godfather, a consigliere, the boss, capos, and then you get down to the soldiers. So, it really would be a different angle that they could potentially tap into. And let's remember, Tommy is also part Italian. His father was Tony Teresi, who had extensive ties to the Italian mob. So, running through Tommy's veins is a bit of Italian blood. With Tariq, I also feel like Elisa Marie may want to come back in, also have a conversation with him as well. And if Tommy and Tariq are together, I think it's a perfect opportunity for them to bring in the threat of the Italians, where Tommy and Tariq have to deal with them together. They were both behind what happened to Joe Proctor, more so Tommy, but Tommy lied to Elisa Marie and also left the back door open, and again, that's something that definitely can't be overlooked. Now I have said it before, I really do hope Power can utilize the Italians because whatever comes next in the world of Power, after Power Book 4 Force, I hope we get something new and refreshing, rather than the same storylines that we've been accustomed to seeing for many years on Power. I do hope whatever they kind of tease towards the end of Force is something new, and I do think the Italian angle can provide that. Even if it isn't Carlo Civello with the Civello mob, maybe it's another Italian crime family, maybe it's someone who has ties to the Civellos and Elisa Marie, and the actor who plays Elisa Marie probably is 18 or 19 at this moment in time. I really do hope they tap into this angle, and again, with both Tommy and Tariq having a hand in Joe Proctor's death, I do think they'd both be in the sights of the Italians, and that's something that could bring them together to fight the last and final big bad before they close the chapter of Tommy Egan's character. Whether they run with the storyline with the Italians, if they go with the Italians, whether they run with the story in New York where the Italians have a rich history, it probably would be quite difficult because Tommy's supposed to be dead in New York. I still think he'll be off to LA. Whether it makes sense for them to have a battle with the Italians in LA, who knows. But either way, I do hope whether it's in Power Book 4 Force or in another Power show, they are able to tap into the Italian Mafia, and I do feel like you can't tap into the Italian Mafia without revisiting the story of Elisa Marie, Tommy, and Tariq. You'd have to assume that Elisa Marie would want to come back and talk to Tommy based on the clues they left in 613, and well, if Tariq is there too, she may also want to get rid of him as well. So, let's see. Let's see if the Italian Mafia is one they kind of explore for Tommy, as well as Tariq. With that being said, the floor is now yours. Drop all your thoughts and comments down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.